So now we will take questions from the audience, and please line up after the standing microphone on each stairway, and we will take turns answering questions from these two sides. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your lecture. I'm a past life regression hypnotist here in Boston. In my work, there are many cases that I help people remember the skill they had from their past lives. And also in your lecture, you give examples of your teacher remembered knowledge from past lives. So my question is, am I supposed to do this to help people remember what they could in earlier life so that they can use in this life? And if I could, does it work for most people that their past life skills can be awakened through outsider help? Thank you.
I truly believe you should keep on doing what you're doing now because I know you can do it. Doing this type of professional work is really good for everyone. In point of fact, hypnosis is also an exceptionally good method. I remember reading an influential early book by the psychologist Helen Wambach, who was quite a pioneer in her field. There is actually a well-known Chinese translation of this work available, titled Reliving Past Lives. Within the pages of this fascinating study, she writes a very compelling observation where she says, at that time she used questionnaires to survey about 1,000 people. It likely would have been in the 1970s or 1980s, in those early days, back when hypnosis science and technology in the US was still in its very early beginning stages. But among the people involved, there were also some police officers. This included a number of distinguished scientists as well as ordinary citizens from various backgrounds, including some very prominent figures of that era. But each person there, they spoke with great sincerity when they said, they never claimed, I am Plato or I am Socrates. They never actually said anything quite like that. So I honestly believe that this science of hypnosis I saw in a completely different source, that nowadays in the United States, through hypnosis, about 13 million people have been able to return to their past lives. I'm not sure how reliable this information is, but I have indeed encountered these sorts of unusual claims. It is actually quite a fascinating perspective. However, in the past, I once tried a hypnosis session by listening to a radio broadcast. I did it by myself with no one else around. I just followed along with an audio broadcast. As I was doing it, I fell asleep. Afterwards, I couldn't recall a single thing at all about my past life because it was incredibly soothing and relaxing. When it reached the deepest level of the experience, it felt truly and deeply comfortable. Sometimes you have experiences like that yourself, but I believe these scientists wouldn't deceive people. It's a very good method.
Hi, everyone. So very thank you, Master. And I enjoy your lecture. So years ago, I experienced, I know about the reincarnation, and from I have several friends. They're Buddhists, and they told me I have. They told me about my past life, and also they told me about there is something supernatural, something like that. But I'm not sure about what is it. And also my friends told me it's not the time for me to figure it out. I still need to wait for years. So this summer I went to Mount Wutai, and I've been there for several days. And when on the flight back to home, I heard about the Buddha's voice, and my friend just told me just wait, and you'll figure out one day who you are in the past life. So I'm wondering that if I should still continue figure out who am I and what my past life is, because I'm very curious right now, or should I just wait for the certain moment and just wait someone to wake me up?
What you just said is definitely true. Sometimes people go through difficult low points in their lives, or when they are facing significant difficulties, they might turn to religion and spiritual faith to seek comfort and blessings. This isn't just something ordinary people do. I've seen many prominent figures and distinguished scientists doing exactly the same thing. You specifically mentioned Chinese Buddhism just a moment ago, and indeed there are many highly accomplished monks who possessed great spiritual power and profound wisdom. I know quite a few of them myself. There are also some temples with powerful blessings and some blessed objects. It is quite possible that a number of dedicated scientific researchers might not necessarily fully understand this concept at all. But when it suddenly happens to you personally, it truly becomes something that is completely undeniable. But when it comes to past lives, that's quite a mysterious subject. While past lives exist, when we are reborn, an interference called afflictive hindrances occurs. Once this happens, except for a few individuals, most people simply cannot remember a thing. There are a few people who can remember from a young age. Originally, Stevenson studied over 3,000 people who could recall their past lives. Among them was a talented 8-year-old Myanmar girl who could beautifully sing, dance, and speak the entire language from her previous life. Absolutely all of it. Except for these rare cases, most of us can't recall anything. So my hope is that you may need to keep learning continuously. This isn't called self-attachment. It's just about learning more in this area. Perhaps this kind of concept is very interesting for your life, just like I mentioned earlier.
So my question is about the time. Which is the best time for a person choose to give up all the things that related to this society and concentrate on the Buddhism? So, like, for example, I'm learning about some artificial intelligence and Python and some algorithms that may recently be replaced by some new algorithm or languages which is more useful. And so I'm thinking about the techniques I'm learning right now will be something useless in the years after. So what sense does it make? So if I take those time to study something that can really cultivate my spiritual world or can really add up more knowledge about Buddhism, I think those time are more worthwhile for some point. But another reason for me to staying here is some teachers have really strong evidence and argument that if you don't really go through all those pains that normal people have in every people's life, then you won't really have the idea that what you are giving up and how can you understand the real meaning behind those words in Buddhism. So I'm really confused about that because all those strong arguments seems complicated and conflict to each other. So which is a good chance for a person to see she or he is, it's good chance to choose another lifestyle.
As for your question, to be honest, the choice you are making now is an exceptionally good one. Such great learning opportunities definitely shouldn't be missed. But don't forget your spiritual faith and important aspects of inner growth throughout your life journey, because there will definitely be many opportunities for self-discovery. In fact, all of us, whether you are very wealthy or not living in abundance, must recognize this truth. Whether you are young or whatever, will eventually leave this world. At that time, if there really is such a thing as good being rewarded with good and evil with evil, then spiritual practice may ultimately be very important. But for now, whether it's big data or a lot of new knowledge, even though it is impermanent, for the time being, it is still very important. Earlier, someone else had the same question as you. I still suggest that you focus on your studies right now. This kind of learning will allow all kinds of conditions to mature in the future.
Thank you, Master. I have a question like this. When I was chatting with a few friends before, we shared a particular viewpoint that people come to this world specifically to cultivate themselves. Everyone carries certain things that they need to work on in their own practice. But many times, some people just simply can't bear it, so they choose to end their lives as a way of seeking a final liberation. They end their own lives this way because I have also experienced some very similar difficult things on the edge myself. And now I also have some friends who are troubled at the edge of deciding whether or not to seek liberation. So I wanted to ask, is there perhaps any way at all that we can do to help them navigate and overcome such difficult and trying times in their lives? That is to say, how can we best support them so they can patiently endure this particular kind of karma they are facing? And are there particular times when we ourselves need to pay special attention? For example, when we feel we can no longer bear the burden, is there perhaps a better way to find and utilize to overcome this difficult and trying period? Thank you very much for your help.
I am currently a student at Boston University, where I am pursuing a double major in both public health and Buddhist studies. I have a rather big and complex question that I would like to ask you today. Specifically, I am very interested in delving into what you just mentioned in your talk about reincarnation. And you mentioned that one needs a specific and necessary level of spiritual cultivation before being able to reincarnate. But you also said just now that every single soul possesses the inherent ability to reincarnate. I assume that includes both those who are dedicated practitioners of the path and those who do not engage in any form of practice whatsoever. And this also includes, as we say, lay people, or even those who don't believe in Buddhism, and every single one of them can still undergo the process of reincarnation. In the context of Mahayana Buddhism, the path is much broader, welcoming not only the monastic community, but also ordinary lay people in their daily lives, along with those who do not identify as believers in the faith. It is my personal observation that they depend heavily on the spiritual record of their past deeds and intentions gathered over time to navigate their current path. If they really have karma, they rely heavily on the specific karma stored within their karmic records to determine their ultimate fate, which of the 6 distinct realms of existence they will be destined to be reborn into in their very next life. So my very first question for you is, in the tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, is it really the case that, does this mean that everyone can still undergo reincarnation, even those individuals who don't practice or don't believe in Buddhism? Now, moving forward, the other specific question I've been thinking about is if the concept of reincarnation is actually a valid and true concept, then for individuals living with disabilities. This is because in Han Buddhism, so in my personal understanding, their disability is a natural and inevitable consequence. From the perspective of their karma, and as a direct result of their unique and individual karmic path, they receive this natural outcome as a reflection of their entire spiritual and life journey. What I want to ask is, does that mean they themselves wanted to become disabled? So that's why they were reincarnated in this way?
Okay, let's start with the first question.
The first question, by liberation, he means suicide.
I understand. For the first question, no matter who wants to seek liberation, we should all try to persuade them not to liberate themselves, because true liberation cannot be achieved this way. If we make a special effort to persuade them, for some people, their karma is manifesting strongly, so it may be very difficult, but for some people, there are indeed ways to help. Because among the people around us, the so-called suffering in life is only temporary. There is no such thing as eternal suffering. That's the first question. So we need to make an effort not to make such a choice ourselves when standing at the edge of life. The second question, as I mentioned to you before, everyone has the potential to be reborn. Actually, this is speaking in a broad sense. Broadly speaking, every sentient being has the opportunity to be reborn. This includes those we just mentioned who have supposedly severed their roots of virtue, those with wrong views, and even people with disabilities. All of these can be reborn. So as I said at the end just now, we will all be reborn. Next, the second point is from a narrower perspective. In Tibetan Buddhism, what we call tulku, or living Buddha, are generally abbots of monasteries or great masters of a particular lineage. These are the so-called reincarnated living Buddhas. Does this unique system of living Buddhas exist? That is what we are discussing today. So this is the narrow definition. As reincarnated living Buddhas, they return to liberate sentient beings, manifesting as emanations of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, or practitioners who have attained high spiritual realization. This is what was just discussed. No matter what, everyone has the opportunity for liberation and for reincarnation. This liberation differs from the one I mentioned earlier. Finally, they asked questions one after another, taking turns. Let me answer with just 2 sentences. Just 1 sentence, nothing more than that.
1 sentence question, just 1 sentence. My question is about ultimate being because I'm studying religion. So basically the question is, when it comes to the religion, the ultimate being is the same thing with the ultimate being in related to God in Christianity and also the Allah in Quran in Islam. So thank you.
Hello, teacher. I'm asking on behalf of a friend in China who wants to study the Bodhicaryavatara to better understand life's purpose and to generate the heart of bodhicitta, wishing for happiness for all beings, and staying self-aware during the entire process of study and practice. He has noticed changes in his life and mindset, but sometimes when afflictions arise, he observes them from a third-person perspective. May I ask, Master, is this state of mind correct?
The first question, for those who have attained the highest level of realization, it is the same. But for those who have not attained realization, it is different. These are all separate aspects. Then, in the Bodhicaryavatara, the method of study taught there should be correct. However, benefiting sentient beings is not so easy. It still requires effort. All right.
I guess this marks the end of our lecture, and would you please give your warmest applause to Master Khenpo Sodargye?